or should I say, especial obrigado to Ambassador and Mrs. Penner for, you know, for being the element of collection, the liaison officers in this case. Muito obrigado. And a special thanks also to Sharon and Ana Teresa for making this possible. I mean, both of you did the most difficult job, making sure that it happens. And in the case of Ana Teresa is my closer collaborator at the embassy, and I like to say that she's my chief of staff. And when things get tougher, and it, you know, especially the agenda and changes and so on and so forth, like it happened a little bit today, and thank you for the flexibility. My reply to Ana Teresa is always, you are my chief of staff, but I'm here also ready to be your chief of staff. Again, muito obrigado, Ana Teresa. Well, you have seen some images of Portugal. I am very glad and actually very humbled to see that most of you have already visited Portugal. Of course, I'm not neutral on this, but let me tell you that nowadays you have more than 100 flights, direct flights per week from the US to Portugal during the winter season. During the summer season, it's almost 200 direct flights per week. We have now more direct flights from the US to Portugal than from Brazil to Portugal. I don't like to say this very loud to my colleague who is the ambassador of Portugal in Brazil, because this was not the case. This was not the case, isn't it, Ambassador? This was not the case like 10 or 20 years ago. So, but although I'm not neutral, I have to tell you that there's much more to be seen in Portugal. You have seen, you know, parts of continental Portugal. You have seen the Azores Islands. I'm not from the Azores, but it's clearly one of my favorite parts of Portugal. So there's still much more to be seen in Portugal. Portugal is a very, very old country. We actually don't know when it started. So I'll leave it to historians to decide, but it was somewhere in the 12th century. And we were talking about this a while ago at the table. Why did Portugal at a certain moment turn to the sea, turn to navigations around the world, turn to try to find more opportunities in other continents, in a way turned its back to Europe and looked at the rest of the world. And I was saying, and now let me, Mr. Reynolds, also share what I told you with all of your colleagues. There were two main reasons that I would sum up in two words: necessity and science. So if you look at the map, Portugal is basically between Spain and the sea. And by then, there was a movement of bringing together all the kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula. So it was either being part of this grouping of kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula or look at the sea. So this is the necessity dimension of this choice. But then there's the science, or the scientific dimension. So by then, there was a clear bet on bringing the best of the best in several areas of knowledge, in navigation, in mathematics, in health, from Portugal or from other countries, even from other cultures, to Portugal to work together. So bring the best knowledge available to bet on exploring the navigations, exploring the sea, the opportunities beyond the known maritime routes and the parts of the sea that were known to Europeans by then. We are, of course, a founding member of NATO, as most of you know, and a proud member of the European Union now for more than 40 years. And for us, career diplomats, we are civil servants. In Portugal, it's very rare to have a political appointed ambassador. And outside that, for a civil servant that serves his or her country abroad, it's good and it's in a way comfortable to see that the main lines of the Portuguese foreign policy have been the same for the last 4 or 5 decades, since we recovered democracy in the middle of the 70s. And this, I'm saying this because regardless of the political color of the governments in Portugal, and of course we have been changing political colors of government in these 50 years quite regularly, as in any other democracy, but the main lines, the main strategic orientations of our foreign policy have been maintained. And those are European integration, transatlantic relation, and the Portuguese communities abroad and the Portuguese-speaking countries. To these 3 main lines of orientation, I would add multilateralism. For a country like Portugal, we have been traditionally a very open economy, historically and culturally a country that has been opening up to the rest of the world, and of course not a big country. It's very important to count on multilateral organizations, to be part of multilateral organizations. And as you know, some Portuguese have been at the helm of some of the most important international organizations, like the Secretary General of the UN, one of the previous presidents of the European Commission, now the president of the European Council, and some other Portuguese, because for us it's important to present good candidates, because we think we should put the best among us at the service of multilateralism. Because I mean, the more the world is integrated and the more the world is depending on it, every country, every region more interdependent, the more we see that there are challenges that touch every country, challenges that do not recognize borders, like climate change, like terrorism, like the digital transition, the energy transition, migration, of course. So there are more issues that are common challenges than less. So we think we need more multilateral solutions and more multilateral, more effective multilateral organizations than less. Besides being an old country, Portugal is an old, trusted ally of the United States. We have been, I mean, of course this year we are commemorating the 250th anniversary of the independence of the US. We can trace some Portuguese, especially in this east coast of North America, even before the independence. And the first ones we have noticed were basically doing 2 things. It won't be a surprise for you. The first group were wine traders, including in this part of the country. The second group were whalers. Portuguese, especially from the islands, were known for being good whalers, especially from the Açores and from Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde was then part of Portugal. Ambassador Pena was ambassador of the US in Cabo Verde. He knows very well what I'm talking about. I have 2 stories about these first groups of Portuguese that migrated or that established themselves in the US. Let me start with the wine traders. So in 1776, in the beginning of July, when the founding fathers of the US toasted to the Declaration of Independence, they toasted with Madeira wine. So, Portuguese wines. Which means basically two things, I guess. The first is that those wine traders were very effective, of course.
Yes.
But it also means that they toasted with Madeira wine, not because it was the only wine available, it was because it was the best wine available. So because of that, we are, doing our part in commemorating the 250th anniversary of the US by bringing a lot of Madeira wine to the United States, and especially to the East Coast, including with our tow ship, with our training ship of our Navy. And this ship will be between Norfolk, Baltimore, New York, Boston, and New Bedford from the end of May to the beginning of July. So I hope you'll have an opportunity to visit this training ship of our Navy in Baltimore at the end of June. It's not that far away. And you'll have an opportunity to get a sip of Madeira wine on board of this Navy training ship. Now the story about the whalers. So most of the Portuguese migration to the US happened to the coasts. We are a maritime country. It's natural that the Portuguese migrated in different waves in the last 200 years or so, basically, to both coasts. So you have sizable amounts of Portuguese Americans from New Jersey to Massachusetts, so in New Jersey, in New York, in Connecticut, in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, but also in the other coast, in California. In Hawaii, it's a very old migration that started in 1878. The Portuguese were going to Hawaii, by then still the Kingdom of Hawaii, basically because they were good in sugarcane. So, and they were traveling around South America, so it was a brave journey. But my story of the whalers has nothing to do with these coasts. Almost 2 years ago, I went to Alaska. So I participated in a conference in Anchorage, and I was there to speak about our blue economy policy and energy transition policy. And at the end of the conference, they took all the speakers to the northern part, the most northern place where humans live in America. And this is a place called Utqiagvik, or Barrow. It's next to the Arctic Sea, and it took us 3.5 hours flying from Anchorage to reach this place. So just for you to be sure that it was really the north of the north. And in Utqiagvik, we were given a tour of the local museum. And the lady that was our tour guide was told that there were some foreigners, some ambassadors from different countries. And she was asking us, we were a group of 5, I think, where are you from? From Ireland. Oh, very nice to meet you. Where are you from? From Poland. So, and then came my turn. And I said, I'm from Portugal. And she stopped. She looked at me. Actually, she looked at me and said, Portugal. And she said something in the local language. So I smiled to her and I said, well, and what does that mean? And she said, it means that the Portuguese are also good whalers, and our ancestors told us that some of them came here and created their family here. Wow. Even for myself, as the representative of Portugal, I was surprised because, it was really that far away in the north. But of course, the big waves of migration from Portugal to the US stopped 40 years ago, somewhere in the 90s, meaning that nowadays the majority of the American Portuguese and are migrating internally like any other American, because they are second, third, fourth, fifth generation. And in total, at the last census, there were 1.5 million Americans that identified themselves as Portuguese. And as I said, mainly in the two coasts. So California, and then from New Jersey to New England. As I said, we have been tested and a permanent ally of the US. Our air forces have been together in a Portuguese Air Force base in the Açores for 8 years. It's interesting, and I visited this Air Force base several times. It's interesting to see how easily both militaries from both countries work together there. But we fought together in the First World War, in the Balkans, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and so on, and in some peacekeeping operations of the United Nations. So fast forward to today, and I will end my presentation with this reference to how are the relations nowadays, and then I'll be glad to answer your question or to listen to your comments. Nowadays the relation is quite strong, and it's quite strong in different areas. If you look at the data of the last 10, 15, 20 years, trade between Portugal and the US is going up, has been going up steadily. Investment in both ways has been also remarkable and has been going up. Tourism, also in both ways, has been also growing, and you are a good example of this, because I've seen, as I said, a good number of people raising their hands, saying that they were already in Portugal. But also, the learning of Portuguese language has been evolving positively in the US. And it's interesting to see, and I've been confirming this during my trips around the US, because we don't have big waves of migration to the US in the last 3-4 decades, it's interesting to see that the students of Portuguese nowadays in the US do not come only from families of Portuguese descent or of Brazilian descent, of Cape Verdean descent, of any other Portuguese-speaking countries. They are coming more and more from American families that have, no trace of Portuguese blood, and for a simple reason, because many people think that having their children learning one more foreign language is important. It helps them when they are entering the labor market, and Portuguese is nowadays a language spoken by almost 300 million people around the world, and of course mainly because of Brazil. And we have also seen, and this is quite remarkable, or quite remarkably obvious in the last 20 years, a reinforcement of the connection between universities in both countries and between research centers. And also the result of this cooperation between universities and research centers in the economy and in the creation of jobs. Just to give you an idea, in Portugal in the last 15, 20 years, from the different startups that made their way into much bigger companies, what we normally call the unicorns, in Portugal we have 7 or 8 of these companies that turned from, small, very innovative, interesting ideas into big companies. Almost all of them are connected with the US. Either they were a result of this cooperation between universities from the two countries, or if they were created in Portugal, then they turned to the US for market, for innovation, for financing, and some of them even moved their headquarters to the US. But the ones that moved their headquarters here, the ones that maintained their headquarters in Portugal, all of them have been creating jobs here and in Portugal. Recently, I asked the CEO of one of these companies how many people how many employees the company had and where. And she said, well, roughly 700 in the US, 700 in Portugal. So it tells you about how this cooperation between research centers, between business people that, or business ideas that are creating around research and university cooperation, then become positive effects to both economies. So thank you very much. I'm ready to reply to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. So in the United States, most recently, immigration has been an issue. And I'm suspecting it's possibly an issue in Portugal. Could you talk about the Portuguese immigration policy?